Everybody, and welcome back. Hopefully you all had good breaks. It was great. We just had a session with the players to kind of get ready for today. And talking with Frank, the theme for our season became so clear. I think a lot of folks want to make this about across the pond rivalry or across the city rivalry, but really for us, it's about one thing, and that's the 15 guys in our locker room. I think our biggest opponent is in the mirror. We got to look at ourselves as a team, and we got to figure out how we come together as 15 players to be the best team we can be. And we have that focus, and it was very clear starting this morning with Coach's address to the team that this is about us. And this is about what we can accomplish as a team this year. We're very excited. We're excited about today. We're excited to have you guys here. And Coach, I'll see if there's anything you want to add before we get into Q&A.
Welcome, everyone. And I have a feeling you all have plenty of questions for me and Rob, so we'll turn it over to you guys.
Rob, Coach, Channel 2. Normally going into a new season, there are great hopes and great expectations. But with the injury to Kyle Kuzma now, do you feel like you're going into the season behind the 8 ball?
That's a great question. We hired Judy Cito as our director of sports performance, and she's done an unbelievable job transforming that space. But we have a lot of encouragement and hope around actually the progress Kyle's making and has made since we found out about his injury. So he's working really closely with the staff, and the progress he's made has been terrific. So there's a lot of optimism and not a whole lot of worry or concern or fear. I think Coach has made it clear in conversations we want to do what's best for the player and making sure that we heal him long term. But we have a lot of hope, and there's a lot of really good signs with the healing that's taken place.
Hey, Frank, what stood out most to you when you spoke to the players and just what you've observed in your time here over the summer as you've gotten to know some of the individuals?
Well, I think the belief is strong in what we can be as a team, what we can accomplish. I think everybody's looking at their teammates, and there's a healthy respect going in for the resumes of the guys we have on our roster this year, whether it's some of the young guys or some of the more experienced guys. There's also a real strong belief in the coaching staff that we put together. Which is always good to have going into a season. And, when the belief is strong at the outset, then it's about, just focusing in on the work, and we're looking forward to getting after
it. Gentlemen, so in acquiring Anthony Davis and the players that you did acquire, a lot of future assets and young players were the cost. What do you take for expectations? I know it's hard to put a number or an exact science on it, but giving up so much for the future, what does today mean?
I think when your starting point of your roster is 2 of the best players in the universe, that's a really strong starting point. And when LeBron put his trust in this organization and chose to come here as a free agent, we had to reciprocate the trust back and build a team that puts great players in a position to be the last team standing. And we don't want to get too far ahead with what our roster stands for. We're going to live in the now and stay present, but we're very confident in these guys and their ability to reach the ultimate goal.
Yeah, we have the ability to achieve the ultimate prize. Yeah, we have the resume, the experience, the talent to do it, but it's not going to happen if we don't come together, and whether, how strongly we come connected, become a team first team, and how quickly we become a team first team, that will dictate ultimately what success we have. But we are going to have the mindset of remaining in the moment and focusing on the task at hand and the day that is in front of us. And if you focus on the work and the process each day, all that stuff ends up being the end result.
Rob, when you look at this past season with all the changes, front office, coaching staff, and the players, how would you characterize what the level of synergy is in the organization entering the season?
You know, it's really exciting. There's been a lot of connectivity and collaboration. I think really starting with the free agency process, working with Coach and his staff. And as you guys know, LeBron and Anthony were very involved in that collaboration of how this team was built. And we feel like stars of their ilk deserve to be collaborative in the process of helping assemble the roster. But you know, it's been great. And I think being able to go and at least observe how the team was started to come together in Vegas, you know, LeBron and Anthony hosted a little bonding time for the team. You can just tell there's a seriousness and a professionalism to what they want to accomplish, and it meshes really well with the veteran staff that Frank assembled. Having coaches like Lionel Hollins and his experience, and Jason Kidd and his experience, and I could go down the whole staff. We have a really serious team of veterans and a veteran coaching staff, so the alignment is really easy to see right away.
Hey, Frank, to your right, back here. Hey, Rob. What can you tell us about the starting lineup for this year? I think LeBron and Anthony, we're pretty sure we know, but beyond that, what have you been able to glean in the summer months?
Yeah, here's the starting lineup that we'll have opening day. It starts at got you, Dave. No decisions are made on starting lineups. We're going to see how different combinations play together throughout camp. That stuff will all play itself out throughout camp. There's a lot of different ways we can go. We have great flexibility within our roster, and you know, stay tuned.
Hey, Rob, right here. It's been a while since we've heard from LeBron. A lot has happened and changed, and you mentioned that he was in on the collaborative effort to kind of rebuild this roster, and so I'm curious what he did this summer, what the conversations you had with him were like.
He was locked in. I mean, it was numerous phone calls, usually three-way phone calls with LeBron, myself, and Anthony, three-way text messages, but incredibly focused and open-minded. Never, the approach is never, you need to go do this. But the approach is always, hey, what do you think about this? And I think that was represented in the process and leading to Dwight Howard. You know, I think it was important that not only from a front office perspective and a coaching perspective, but from a playing perspective, that everyone was aligned. And when he came to us and let us know he wanted to be a part of something bigger than himself, and that he had hit a point in life where he had hit rock bottom and realized that life wasn't about individual accomplishments or fame and money, but was about trying to be a part of something bigger. It was very genuine. And then that led into conversations with the coaching staff and then the players. And that's really how we're doing things, is to make sure that we're a family of 15 people and everyone's voice matters. But LeBron was incredibly locked into the whole process and has been great to work with.
Hey, Rob, can you tell us your thoughts on this roster? Do you anticipate adding more players? Do you feel like you have enough shooting around LeBron and Anthony?
Yeah, I think our job is to always have an eye on improving the team, you know, and we're going to constantly look for opportunities to make this the best team we can. That's just part of our job. That said, with the 15 guys we have signed, we think we can get and be the last team standing. We have a belief in that and a confidence in that, but it's going to take a tremendous amount of work, and the process is going to be a part of it. In terms of the shooting, I think the best way to learn in life is from things that didn't go right or from the past. You know, I think failure is a much better professor in life than success sometimes. You know, success can lead to pride or arrogance, and failure says, what do we need to address? How do we need to get up and be better? And clearly shooting was an important thing to add. And we go right down our roster. If you look at, Danny Green and Quinn Cook and KCP and, Jared Dudley, Troy Daniels, Avery Bradley. It's full of multi-dimension players that are great shooters. So we're really confident in that construction when you have LeBron and Anthony Davis with the space that they can create as two of the best players in the game. We do feel like we have the shooting to space the court.
Yeah, I think that's the most exciting thing about how this roster has been built once AD came aboard is, the experience level, obviously, the number of really good players that we've added. I feel good about everybody on the roster, but the shooting improvement, is, I hope it to be dramatic from this point last year.
Frank, over. What value do you place in getting off to a good start, and how important will that be with the West being so tough?
Yeah, I hear a lot of people talking about, you don't want to, get off to too good of a start, and you want to peak at the right time and whatnot. And the management of the season in terms of keeping guys mentally fresh and physically fresh going into the playoffs, is something that is going to be in the front of my mind throughout the season. But we're trying to win every game we play. We're trying to win opening night. We're trying to win the first 10. We're trying to win the first 20. And, that leads us to a strong start. Then so be it. We'll sustain it while making sure that mentally we're staying fresh and physically we're staying fresh, so we're at our best going into the playoffs.
Hi, Rob. You signed DeMarcus Cousins, and since that happened, he's been through a couple of things pretty significant, the injury and then the domestic violence investigation. I'm wondering what your plans are for him going forward. Is the intent to keep him on the roster? And if so, what's the thinking behind that?
Yeah, I think the most important thing to say is the Lakers as an organization take allegations of domestic violence extremely seriously. That said, when allegations are made for any NBA player, the league takes over and handles that investigation. So we're going to abide by the league's lead on this as that's being investigated. And because it's a legal matter, we can't really speak any further about that. Right now, he's a member of our roster and a part of the team. And we'll just have to wait for guidance from the league on next steps.
Frank, what's your vision defensively? You have rim protectors who presumably could be out there all 48 minutes. And how do you look at the versatility and all the things you're going to be able to do defensively?
We have great possibilities on that end of the floor. It's going to start with us being diligent with the drill work in training camp and in practice to build a cohesion. A lot of people will talk about when you have a lot of new faces coming together, it's about the pass and catch timing and all those types of things. But to me, it's more important on the defensive end. That's something that, I don't anticipate being perfect at the start of the season, but something that hopefully will grow throughout the season and be strongest towards the end. But the abilities we have on that end of the floor are really something I'm really excited about. You mentioned the ability of having an elite rim protector for 48 minutes. That's a great starting point for building a great defense. It is a different league now than it was 5-10 years ago, with opposing centers being at the top of the key, strong side corner at the three-point line. So it's not as easy to camp those rim protectors in front of the basket all night. So, it's not going to always translate, to having a shot blocker at the rim. But, we've got a scheme in place that is designed to put them there as much as possible, to minimize the situations where, our five-man is chasing a point guard around the top of the key, watching them dance and trying to contain all the way out there and trying to keep them close to the basket as much as possible on the defensive end. But I'm equally as excited and encouraged about the perimeter defenders that we have and the IQ that we have, on this roster. So, if this group is willing to put in the work and to commit to that end of the floor, we can accomplish special things.
Hey, Rob, you mentioned the staff that Frank was able to put together. I think when Frank was hired, he mentioned that Jason Kidd was somebody that you guys brought to him as hoping he could find room for on staff. Can you explain how that deal came together, and then and why it was such a priority for the organization to get Jason in here? And then Frank, can you speak to how that relationship has developed so far?
Bill, congrats on number 2, and I hope you had a good sabbatical. You know, I think we talked about collaboration in one of the previous questions, and one of the hallmarks of, I think, Frank's DNA is just he has a very collaborative personality. And so I think going into the process of assembling his staff, myself and Kurt Rambis, with his coaching experience, when we talked to Coach, had several candidates that we thought were really interesting that could be a part of a larger staff. And the goal with the staff was to have a very experienced staff. And the vision was to have Frank surrounded by other coaches that had been in the head chair. Knowing that the level of roster we were building was full of guys with high basketball IQ. So the more basketball minds we could have as part of the staff, we felt better. And Frank loved that vision and had talked about when he was in previous jobs with the Pacers, and having guys like Brian Shaw and Nate McMillan and other people like that on his staff was really important. Jason in particular, we liked what he stood for in terms of his ability to understand and see the game. And when you have guys on your team like LeBron and Rondo and players of that ilk, having guys that can relate to their level of talent was really key and important for us, and a big ingredient that we're grateful for on the overall staff.
And in terms of how it's begun with Jason and I would rate it a 10 out of 10. I think we're off to a great start with our chemistry with one another. His intent to come in here and play any role that is needed, should be commended. I love the fact that when I interviewed him, the discussion was along the lines of he felt like when he went from being a player to a head coach, he skipped steps, in terms of learning what the process is like, being an assistant coach and the work that goes in, and learning what the foundation is to coaching at this level. So he's excited about executing that type of responsibility, that type of role. And he's been invaluable in helping put together our plan for the way we want to play this year, the way we're going to use our roster. And, I envision him coming in, potentially being a perfect complement to my experience level and skill set. And so far it's played out that way.
Hi, over here, guys. I know neither of you guys were here last time when Dwight was with the Lakers. That season didn't really meet the expectations of the organization at the time, and Dwight has been on a number of teams since then. I'm wondering what conversations or maybe anything else that made you guys believe that Dwight is ready to be a valuable member of the team.
Yeah, I think I touched on that a little bit, but it was the interaction with him, and it started with his openness to a concept of a non-guaranteed contract. The first messages that he brought to Coach and I were, listen, I've had chapters in my career as a superstar where people were afraid to hold me accountable, and I want to be held accountable, and so I'm willing to sacrifice millions of dollars with his former team to come on a non-guaranteed contract. So he put his money where his mouth was and showed this desire, like I said earlier, to be a part of a group of guys and to do something bigger than himself. Then he came in and he worked out, and it was almost like a draft workout. I mean, it took a lot of humility to come in as a guy that's been a first-team All-NBA player and felt like he needed to try out and earn a spot. And that showed some character changes. Then it was time up in the offices, just talking to him about his story and some of the things he'd been through as a person last year and hitting low points. And again, I think trial and going through hard things is when you're shaped as a person, and he seemed like he was changed. And then once Coach and his staff felt good and we felt good as a front office, we brought some of the key players in to have direct conversations with him about being a teammate, being a good teammate. And everyone felt it was real. And because of the injury to DeMarcus, the talent was so extraordinary, and he physically looked so great and was willing to play a role. And I'll let Coach speak to that we felt like it was all upside and no downside, especially with a non-guaranteed contract.
Yeah, and I want to echo everything that Rob said about the workout. He looked really good. You could tell he was serious about it by the fact that he had dropped a lot of weight. Looked really good, moving up and down the floor. Was willing to play, against coaches and video guys in a 3-on-3 setting that looked like a draft workout. And and then the conversation we had upstairs, the humility piece was the biggest thing for me. And I had read somewhere that he wanted to play 4 or 5 more years, and I laid out how that was going to look. For him to do that, it's going to have to take a shift in his expectation of roles with teams, and that he still has the ability to be a star in his role, but to be a role player. And we laid out that that's what it would look like here. He appeared to have a genuineness about wanting to just be a part of it and have a chance, and his willingness to accept any role that we lay out for him. And that just, to me, showed me that he was serious, that he could help us, and we move forward with it.
Rob, do you sense any extra motivation in LeBron after all that happened last year?
I might be able to answer that question better in a few weeks, but I think that you can see in his demeanor a seriousness and a focus. You definitely can, Bill, just in his presence. And it was clear in his preparation. I think physically he looks like he really leaned up and locked in even more, if that's possible, given how hard he works. I think having done, I know he filmed his movie, and I think concentrating his time early in the morning, I think he was doing 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock workouts. The guys were saying, I don't know if I can keep up with him because he's working so hard. So he just really seems locked in and serious. That's the air that we've gotten so far being around him.
Hey, Rob. Just wanted to see what the adjustment has been like for you, the first summer really heading up all of basketball decisions for the Lakers, just what the experience was like.
Listen, I think our fans have huge expectations for what this franchise should stand for, and I think that the more we can just focus on putting in the work to deliver to our fans what they want, that's what this is all about. And it's not about me, it's not about Coach, it's about our 15 players, and it's about trying to add to this Lakers legacy with championships. And that's what the work is about. And you feel the energy coming from the outside, from the fan base, saying, hey, where was the team a couple years ago and where are we now? And I think there is a feeling of excitement in this city. And that's something that we're proud of. If we can put in work to get the team to a place where they can compete to be the last team standing, we got to be proud of it. But we do it as a group of individuals. There's no one person here that, to me, is any more important than others. There's 100 folks that work in this building, and each of them have equal importance in my eyes.
If I could ask both you guys this question, LeBron hasn't had this much time off, I think, since 2005. Just wondering what you think that could do for him physically and what you expect for him throughout the season.
Well, I would think that it is going to have him coming into the season as fresh as he's come into a season in many, many years. And, that's good news for us and bad news for the rest of the league. So we'll see how that all plays out. But, that's sort of the common sense read on, what I think it should look like for sure.
Over here. Today is obviously a day of eternal optimism. You mentioned expectations a moment ago. What is success for you this season? Is it championship or bust, or do you think that being in the Western Conference Finals would be okay? How do you gauge success for this season?
I think Coach made it very, very clear in the film room just now that success for us is a great 2-day practice tomorrow, that we optimize that practice and we take this thing one day at a time and that we lock into the process. We're not going to jump to June. we're going to jump to tomorrow and making sure that we start the season off with 2 great practices.
Yeah, stay in the moment. Like I said, we've talked about we have the ability to achieve the ultimate prize. All right, but you know, our focus will not be on that. Our focus will be on the moment.
All right, we're just getting started.